the recording on, we'll have the recording on our website as well in a few weeks. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to Kat and Keyur.
Thank
Hi,
you.
so good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have another distinguished speaker. Keyur Lad is currently working as a procurement category manager at Niagara Bottling with a bachelor's in electrical engineering from UCLA and an MBA with a focus in marketing from the Drucker School. His journey is a testament that successful career transitions are possible. I am personally so excited to learn from him as an MBA student and to trying to figure out my next steps. So hello, Keyur. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to everyone. How are you?
I'm doing well. So if my voice cracks, folks, I am a little sick, so apologize ahead of time.
So let's get started. I just wanted to share again with everyone to please feel free to ask your questions. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself, about your current position at Niagara and how you got there?
Yeah. So hey everyone. It's a pleasure to be back at Drucker. Just 2 years ago I was sitting on the other side, and now I'm here giving hopefully advice that can help you all. So I'm actually SoCal native. I live just 15 minutes away in Azusa. I, like Kat and Deborah mentioned, I went to UCLA, got an electrical engineering degree, thinking I was going to be an engineer, but ended up, growing within operations management of a, food and beverage company. And then I realized I was too enclosed in the four walls of a building. I wanted to expand my knowledge and scope and sort of grow out of a building environment to go into a more corporate, external facing role. And so that, prompted the discussion of going back to school, and the MBA was sort of the best path forward for me. Back in 2019, when I was applying, I don't tell this to anybody, but I did one application, and that was Drucker, because I only wanted to go to Drucker. And so it was a great experience, even though I only had a semester and a half on campus and the rest was at home, just like this. But you guys have, a great exposure to faculty that's very willing to help you and do those one-on-one conversations. I've spoken to so many faculty at Drucker, almost probably all of them during my 2 years. And their support and guidance, along with the career group where Kath and Deborah are part of, have given so many great advice that helped me make this transition into a role that not only complements my personal background in operations, but allows me to now focus externally to work with all sorts of groups, from business development to execution of new projects, as well as doing innovative work as well for the company. And so that's where I'm at currently with Niagara. Probably the water you're drinking is probably made by us. We've grown so much over the last few years.
That's really interesting. So you mentioned that there was a shift before you got your MBA and then after. So you were working as a manufacturing operations manager, and then now you're in procurement. So personally, for me, your story is very inspiring because transition can be scary. And I was just wondering what inspired you to dive into this new field, and how did your MBA assist you to make that transition?
Yeah. So procurement is a very unique role. Not very many people, go to undergrad and say, hey, I want to go into procurement. I want to be a buyer or negotiator, etc. Procurement tends to find people, and naturally, now that I can say that it did, when I came to Drucker, my primary focus was I want to go into marketing, which is why I tailored my degree to marketing, certificates in analytics, etc. Right? But along the way, if you're going to go down this pathway of transition, right, there has to be a certain level of transition of past experience, right, that will help you be successful in a role. Otherwise, you may have to start from the very bottom again, right, and grow again in that new ladder of corporate, right? So for me, operations and being in a manufacturing environment, I've learned the entire ins and outs of, the process, the technical equipment, etc. Now, what's interesting is the role that I'm in is I'm buying everything that I used to manage when I was in the factory, and all the suppliers that I used to deal with. So it's a very complementary role,
Mm.
and that actually played a big role in this transition. And once you arrive in procurement and you learn the ins and outs of procurement as a whole, it's very easy to transition into another procurement scope, right? There are different types of procurement uh, sort of ladders within the discipline.
That's very interesting to know. So what kind of support did you have in terms of your, aside from your academic background, like what skills and support did you have when you made that transition?
So apart from education, personal experience, right? There isn't an art to networking, right? Networking is not as simple as let me go to an event, introduce myself, and hopefully, let me give my resume and it will work out. It's a very tactical skill set you actually have to learn, right? And one of the things that truly helped me was working with, the career strategy group, learning how to do informational interviews, how to reach out to folks, along with side by side, also learning from the faculty, from their experiences, and them connecting me with the right industry leaders who also actually helped me educate myself on what story you have to formulate, right? That is a selling story, that's a convincing story that when you are networking, they will understand where you're coming from and are willing to give you a chance, right? At a position or an internship, etc. So you have to refine your networking skills as well.
That's very helpful. So what if, for instance, someone like me personally is not comfortable with networking? How do you suggest we go about to doing that?
So I think I'm not sure, Deborah, do we still have those mock interviews or etc. that we used to have?
Yes, we do a whole week of mock interviews in February, and we'll be hosting another set of those this in 2024.
So I will tell you that actually I've been to a couple of those sessions, right? Another thing is maybe have somebody help you get introduced to somebody. So there's that comfortableness transition, right? Rather than blindly reaching out to somebody, right? Because usually if someone is introducing you to somebody, the person that they are introducing you to, they will ask that person a little bit about you already as a pre-screening. So hopefully, let's say if a professor or somebody in career strategy is introducing you, um, already kind of set the stage, you actually go in more comfortable, right? So that's probably a good way to get into the rhythm and sort of come out of that comfort zone. And then you can definitely start, taking it up a notch and do blindly reaching out on LinkedIn, etc., and just have and go to events.
That's really helpful. So I kind of want to shift back to your current position. What aspects of procurement do you enjoy the most?
The dinners that the suppliers invite us to. No, I'm just kidding. That's just the last part in the relationship. So procurement is quite, you know, very articulate approach to your work. So it's a combination of a lot of things. You have to have really good social skills, right? Because you're constantly interacting with external folks. So there's maturity in your communication that is needed. There is sort of that emotional intelligence piece because every conversation you're having is almost a tactical conversation, no matter if you're in a meeting situation or outside of a meeting situation. Um, the other part I enjoy is the ability to go to, big events, big tech events, summits, etc., where you're meeting a lot of suppliers. You're learning about new technology. That really broadens your scope of knowledge, your ability to reach and find opportunities that you can bring back to your team, your company, and actually onboard new suppliers, try new technology out, etc. So that piece is very important. It comes with a little bit of travel that maybe some people who will like or not like. So procurement, I would be cautious of what type of role you're going into. Some can be heavy travel.
Mhm.
And I think the last piece is now in this today's day and age, data is key. So your ability to understand data, and anybody can do analysis, but can you extract the story and then formulate a game plan to deliver results is actually what separates you from somebody who else has data analytics experience.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. So knowing the kind of skills and training that you need to have, what advice do you have for students who want to pursue working in that industry?
Within food and beverage, right? So beverage is an up and down industry, right? Just like, let's say utility industry, right? Like gas, SoCal Edison or SoCal Gas, right? They're very stable because they focus on core things that is a need, right? It's a necessity. Water is just like that. Water is a need, right? So within the beverage industry, companies that produce water, they're going to be more stable. Whereas beverage companies that are non-water, it's up and down. If some people might like your product for some time, they might not like. So you have to be careful in the type of company you would be interested in. Here at Niagara, we do a blend, right? With majority of our products is water, and now we're branching out into the beverage side more. But those up and downs in the market, right, can also affect job security as well, right? So right now we're plastic, producing company, right? There's a lot of push for eco-friendly environmental safety, right? So there's a lot of innovations happening. And so if a company is not innovating to help reduce environmental impact, they can have some challenges down the road. And that is something that Niagara has taken personally and has been the forward runner of that right now.
Oh, that's interesting. So would you advise any kinds of internships or?
Yeah, so actually this right now, October, even last month, September, is right now is go on our website. I mean, there's a ton of internships, right? And it's labeled by each group. So if you're interested in a specific group, feel free to apply. And of course, you can definitely reach out to me on LinkedIn or the contact info that Kat shares, and we can have a conversation. And Niagara prides on hiring people through referrals. Just a little FYI. If we're able to refer you, you'll be at the top of the stack, basically. And we'll help you get the interview, and then after that, it's on you, right? How you do in the interview.
Oh, okay. So we'll make sure that everyone will check out your website with the job opportunities. That's really interesting and exciting. So do you have any last pieces of advice and wisdom that you can share to everyone?
In terms of wisdom and advice, as you go down your road, your pathway at Drucker, right? And you're trying to figure out where you want to land, whether it's a job, internship, etc., right? Try to formulate your bucket by utilizing all the different resources you have. Nobody's journey is going to be the same. So the career strategy group, try to see what resources that are going to help you. Maybe faculty might have something. Maybe CTU itself might have something, right? You take those different, items from different buckets, and you take that and you tailor your approach. That's what I had to do, right? And that's why my path is so unique to where I am today. So it's actually on us to extract that information and utilize it. But everybody at Drucker will be there to help you with whatever you ask.
Oh, that's really helpful. Thank you very much, Keyur. So we have some time. Does anyone have any questions that they would like
May
to
I ask
ask?
one question?
Yeah, go for it. Hey.
Hello, Keyur. I look at your LinkedIn profile and I found out you have been to so many different companies, and it's like after 1 year or 2 years you go to a better company. May I ask why did you choose to go to another company, and what those experience you have gained, what does it bring to you?
So some of the previous experience, right, from Anheuser-Busch, So my first job was with a beer company, right, Anheuser-Busch. So some of those transitions that I had to make were actually what I was trying to hint at when I said about the beverage industry. Some companies can go up and down, which can affect your job security. So me making some of this transition is actually me sort of protecting myself, right, a little bit. But each of those experiences I'm actually very thankful for, because not only did I see a beverage operation when I was at Nestle Waters, I saw water operations. And then lastly, when I was an operation manager for a container company, I saw the operations of empty containers, which is all injection mold. And then today, when I'm in this role, I'm buying equipment for all three types of environments. It just, I don't know, life naturally took me in that direction, but it just came together.
Thank you.
And every time you shift a company, right, there's a huge learning curve, right? And every company, trust me, does something different. Even though it's like you're going from one type of operation to another type, or maybe making water, same company, but they'll do something differently. And all that comes together pretty well when you're in a corporate environment, because when you work in a corporate environment, you don't have time to go to the plant and see what's happening. You almost have to visualize it from your desk, and make decisions that's going to make a huge difference at a factory level.
Thank you. So, we have a question from Ro. What was your experience like at Drucker? Any advice on resources to explore while we're still students?
Yeah, so actually Drucker, like I mentioned, right, I had about a semester and a half on site before we went into virtual because of COVID. I would highly recommend you go to office hours with the professors and the classes. Let's say, for example, Kat, you're in marketing, right? The different marketing professors we have, go to their office hours and just develop that relationship, and then maybe go into deeper about the career, because I think that really, their wealth of knowledge, but it takes time to extract that knowledge, and for you to you have to go multiple times and throughout your semester time frame. And then there are so many other resources, right, that the school offers, from career strategy, career development. Then you have other folks that focus on the external, right, with alumni, relationship building. Meet with those people, because you have no idea how much knowledge you'll gain from those interactions. And when I was a student, I used to go to the career strategy office, probably once every week or once every 2 weeks. At the time, there were other folks, right? But every time I went, I learned something else. Joined the student clubs, and then try to also see what's happening at CGU as well. And there's always something happening there that can be beneficial as well. And one of the tools I think that was very helpful is on LinkedIn. When you go to, let's say, the Drucker page, and you go under alumni or something, people, you can see who's the alumni, right, from years ago. You can actually filter and figure out who's in what type of field and there. And I used to find people that way and blindly reach out to them, and that was very helpful.
I have a question, Keyur. You kind of touched on it briefly, but you were talking about ways that Niagara is trying to be eco-friendly and really search out sustainable ways with the bottling of water and how they produce it. Could you go a little more in depth about what they're doing there?
So right now, Niagara not only has the world's fastest water line production-wise, but then we also have the lightest bottle. So one of the things that we continue to push is how do we reduce plastic usage is one, reduce the ways that we don't have to buy it, or the recycling company doesn't have to keep buying stuff. Then the second piece is, when you pick up let's say a 40-pack case, right, that film that's around it, there is innovations on how you package those bottles. So you actually end up using less film, and you can actually go lighter film. So as your water weighting decreases, the package, you can also reduce the sturdiness of your film, and still be okay. Then from a recycling standpoint, right? We are investing in technology that actually allows us to use more recycled plastic rather than, virgin plastic, because the more you recycle, the properties, the chemical properties, they start to break down, and you can't get a sturdy blow of a bottle once you introduce too much virgin. But we're looking at innovative ways to do that.
Thank you. It's always exciting to see that. I know that that's such a concern for our planet when we see all the things that, all the plastics and recyclables that haven't been recycled or that are building up in the ocean or in landfills. So it's exciting to see that Niagara is leading the way in how to reduce that.
It's hard. I'll tell you that. It's not very easy.
Yeah,
It's a challenge to do.
So it looks like Zachary Swanson raised his hand. Zach, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. My name is Zach. I'm actually in a positive developmental psychology PhD program, but I've been doing some work in organizational psych as well. I was very interested, just kind of a general picture of what does your day-to-day look like? So like, what exactly do you do every day? I didn't really know much about procurement until I started doing a little bit of research right now, but any other insight would be awesome. Thanks.
So every week tends to be a little bit different, depending on what's going on. So here, the procurement group that I work in, we do new projects, right? So we have cycles of procurement or things that we buy for new facilities, right? So in a given week, we might be evaluating certain RFPs that are coming back, and evaluating who's bid, their technical scopes, and then we start negotiation. That whole process, depending on what we're buying, can take up to 3 weeks, right? With multiple interactions throughout the week. Then you have, your regular meetings with your team, right? We're evaluating finances, we're evaluating, workflow processes. How are we doing improvements? If we're rolling out new things, what's the status? What action do we need to take? And then another piece is we support the factory as well, right? So once a project is put in place, but if there are challenges coming up, we circle back and support that. And so there's a support piece to procurement as well. And then lastly, there's a lot of, depending on the role, my role is about 20% travel. So either we're traveling to our factories or we're traveling to our supplier for relationship building or, et cetera, right? Or we're going to, these types of expos, right? Expos, summits, et cetera. So yeah, that's usually how our month goes. And then summer months are more in office, where because it's peak season for water, and so if there's anything happening going wrong in the facilities, then we have to be ready to act and support right away.
Thank you. That's really interesting. And I know Kat has her hand up, but is it okay if I ask a quick follow-up real quick, Kat?
No, go ahead.
I was just wondering, so it seems like you have pretty diverse teams that you must be working with because you have a lot of different, I guess, responsibilities with both evaluating finances, different types of data. So what does your team look like, and what are their different strengths that kind of blend together, and how do you make that work?
Yeah. So procurement is, let me tell you the different branches of procurement, right, that we have. We have indirect procurement, which is what I'm part of. Basically, you're buying everything that doesn't specifically produce the bottle itself, right? So, your utility room, your, coating equipment, your stretch wrapper, the pallet that gets wrapped, or, all the supporting, your waterfront, which is all your ROs and et cetera, right? So that's all indirect procurement. Then there's direct procurement. Direct procurement is basically purchasing raw material, ingredients, something that's going to go into the bottle. And then there's another group, which we call it resin procurement. So basically, they are the ones that are doing the global purchasing of resin, of plastic that's coming into our facility. And then we have a logistics planning procurement. So those are the folks that focus on moving our product, right? Transportation. And so those are the sort of different groups that we have. In our group, in indirect, we call it, the reason why it's called category is, let's say I'm purchasing water farm. So water farm is one category. So there's various different equipments within that category. Then let's say you go into the utility room, those are your compressors, right? That's one category. So when you're a category manager, like you might have multiple categories that you manage, right? And so above me in the chain is we have a procurement manager above me, right? Who manages a set of portfolios, right? He might have like 100 categories that report into him, but then he split up 30-30, for example, right? Amongst his team. And then above that, you have your director that overlooks all of indirect procurement.
Wow, quite a team there.
Yeah, if I could, I just wanted to ask about Niagara. Like, what is the culture of your organization? What makes it such an interesting place to work in?
So Niagara is, as you might know, we are still a family-owned company, right? This is our 60th year. We're all looking forward to the end of the year celebration party. But Niagara, it's very, even the family today, from the dad to the son, they're very involved, right? They're hands-on, going to the plants, either flying or driving, right? So the culture is, find a way, we all work together, right? It's not as simple as let's just delegate and I'm the manager, I'm going to delegate and kind of walk away, let my team handle it. No, I think at every level, everybody is very involved, very supportive, which makes it fun, right? Because you know that you're going to have support, right? And in this day and age, getting the right coaching, the right support is very important because everything is moving so quickly. At Niagara, we do move very quickly. So, the talent that we have is most of the people are type A, I would say, in terms of, very forward, go-getters, problem solvers, critical thinkers, creative thinkers. One of the things that Niagara, the reason why it's always ahead of the game compared to its competitors is the creativity, like thinking outside the box and being very innovative, right? And always searching for the next best solution in the market. We do work hard, but then we also get rewarded. There's always events happening and celebrations, and there's a lot of perks as well. But at the end of the day, you have to be that proactive person and on top of it, basically. Sometimes it's kind of difficult to slack off. And we do have the culture where it's kind of like Netflix, where you have unlimited PTO. But the max usually people takes is a month. Yeah.
That's interesting. Sorry, before Sheng, do you have a question?
Yeah, may I ask another question?
Go for it.
Yeah, I look at your profile. You seems really good at operational management, cost reduction, and quality control. Right now, I'm doing a project in one of my course. It's how to optimize schools for my backup supply management system of 5,000 laptops. May I ask you for some opinion, like what kind of direction I should go to? Because I think as a student, I always cannot think out of my box.
Right. So are you asking for what's a good approach to figuring out cost reduction and how to do that?
Yes.
It is a long answer, but it's something that I can probably tell you on the side, right? We can connect, but overall, one of the basics is you have to first identify your workflow, right? You have to walk through the process, right? Map it out. And then you start seeing where some of the challenges are happening. And then let's say it's one area, right? You have to break that area down. At Niagara, we call that BDA, breakdown analysis, for example. And you'll start to see it's a personal error, like a human error, or like a system process is not transferring. I mean, you'll start to see, right, what's happening. So, but you always have to map out your entire process first, from end to end, from every basic step you have to. And then you start going deeper into where you think things are breaking apart.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Start from the big picture.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Any other
Um,
questions?
Yeah, so I wanted to ask about what's the next steps in terms of your current role. Are you envisioning what's next? Are you doing any professional development?
Yeah, so one of the things here at Niagara is we have a lot of resources, almost kind of similar to college type resources, right? Where there's a lot of development, we support, if you're looking to get green belt, black belt, etc., right? Under your belt, we support that. We also support different types of certificates. So for me, definitely want to work towards the next role, right? Within procurement, but along with that is actually get one of those green belts under my belt as well, because I have a lot of the experience, but I just need to somehow put it in a certificate format to do that project. So here at Niagara, actually, it's once you start approaching your 1.5 years, let's say, right, you will actually get, if you're doing a great job and your personal, ratings or reviews are great, your manager will actually present that of okay, how do we get you to the next role? So they actually like to do timely manner promotions as well. So HR actually does that from a support standpoint. So it's a very supporting culture here. I think once you get to a certain level, it's hard to move up every 2 years. I think you will reach a plateau where you might be in that role for more than that, right?
That's cool. Working in such a supportive environment seems really, it's something that I personally look for in an organization. I just have a question. Was there anything that you were kind of worried about before you went in, and it's just kind of you're used to it now?
Yeah. So I think whenever you do let's say a job function or industry and kind of change, right? It's brand new almost, right, for you. And so early on, 3 to 6 months, it's going to be tough, right? And you really have to rely on your skills, right? Your soft skills to ask questions, learn quickly, and be very proactive. Um, Ask a lot of questions, be very close to your manager, and try to learn from them. Um, the other piece is, you have to, when you're doing this transition and being in an environment where it's new, you really have to actually navigate through sort of the roadblocks, right? Because some companies might have departments that are very siloed, right? Each department is siloed in their own environment, so it's hard to understand what's going on. You really have to find a way to put that bridge in place and sort of learn. And so you'll have to put more effort in initially.
Thank you, Zach.
Hello again.
Okay.
My question, I'm working with a lot of students and alumni on helping find what jobs and careers they would want in the first place to kind of this exploration phase. So before you actually get in there, I would like to get a little bit of your input. So when you were exploring kind of different options and transitions, what was it like for you to realize like if a certain option was the right move for you? If you feel a little bit uncertain, what kind of things would you look for in a career that seemed to be pulling you towards taking that step?
Yeah. So what's interesting is when I came to Drucker, right? Yes, I put marketing, on my application as my interest, right? But I was exploring all options, anything that was external facing, right? So believe it or not, if you want to get an understanding of what that environment is going to be like, you have to first humble yourself, right? That saying, I actually need to learn something, right? So believe it or not, with the support of Professor Bernie, during my first semester, I got a temp role at a consulting company because I wanted to learn what consulting was like for almost free, basically. Like others, like no, and I did that just briefly before COVID hit to get an idea of what consulting would look like, and sitting in those meetings and the conversations they're having. And so you have to, if you're still in that phase of trying to figure out where you want to go, be okay with taking, positions like this, right? Very small, and when you're in there, then you have the opportunity to ask a lot of questions, ask for exposure, etc., right? But just be very open to that, right? And by the time you are coming closer to your graduation, hopefully to your last semester, you have a good idea saying, hey, this is actually working for me because from this exposure. And then from there, now you really put all your focus on that pathway and figure out who's going to help you, who are you going to network with. And it really helps to not only just network with, let's say, people that are younger in the career, but also go for people that are much higher up in the corporate ladder, because they have a top-down view, and they're able to actually give advice on what are they looking for in order for somebody to be successful, because they have full view of the group that they manage, right? So I used to manage all three. I used to network with all three levels. So early career, mid management, as well as VPs or so. With VPs or so, I would recommend somebody helping you get you introduced to them, rather than blindly reaching out. So maybe with the help of the career strategy group, or even a faculty or whoever, right, at Drucker, or if there's a mutual connection, maybe kind of go that pathway. It will be very helpful.
That's really interesting. If nobody else has a question, I have more follow-ups for you if we still have time. So I think one thing that you mentioned was the executive level, having somebody introduce you. So what does your networking strategy have to be to know the people who know the executive leaders in a company to introduce you?
So a couple of things. So I would use various tools, right? So one is LinkedIn. So if you know, let's say at Niagara, you want to speak to a VP, and I'll just use my VP, right? His name is Anup. Let's say you want to talk to Anup, right? And you go to his LinkedIn and see who is there actually a mutual connection already? Is there a college that he went to that might be a reference? One of the things I found was my current manager, who I networked with, right, in order to get this role. Turns out he knew somebody at CGU that I spoke to CGU when I was there during the 2 years, and they're best friends outside of their professions. So LinkedIn is a really good tool, and whenever you see anything, right, like whether it's a college in common or a person in common, if it's a person, it's pretty easy. You reach out to that person, right, and see if they're willing to help you. I think within the Drucker network, one of the things that helped me was when I was networking with alumni who are willing to help, students, right? During those conversations, I would ask questions like, hey, do you know anybody else within your network that can further help me in my networking or this pathway that I'm on? Maybe they can share more knowledge, etc. And believe it or not, from there, I met other folks that were not directly related to anybody that I knew. And the reason why you want to do that is when you start to go at a much higher level, they're constantly meeting people, right? They're always, and so when you're networking, your goal is to have their focus on you for 30 minutes. If you're doing an information, right? The attention's on you, right? Not the 30 other people that they might meet in 1 week. And so that's why, and they're very quick, right? And they're if you can get 30 minutes, that's excellent. But sometimes, a 5-minute conversation goes a long way as well. But that 5-minute conversation has to be very tactical, very direct. It's because they what I've learned is they don't like to waste too much time, right? In casual conversation, they're very direct and straight to the point. And so, if somebody's introducing to you and they already had a conversation, they might put in a good word for you already. So the stage is sort of set for you to really go in and do that 10-minute conversation quickly.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I wanted to ask, because you mentioned that you went into Drucker wanting to do something related to marketing.
Yeah.
And then something happened, you got your MBA, and then now you're in procurement. I'm just really curious what was the process? What was the flow about how that came about?
So I think when I was focused on marketing, right, and doing my marketing classes, one of the challenges I ran into because of COVID, right, was the ability to network well and land an internship. That was probably the biggest challenge that didn't allow me to get some experience under my belt in order to sort of help me make that transition. So along the way during COVID, right, then I had to re-strategize my strategy basically. But then that's when I met few folks that were in procurement, right? And it just so happened that it was easier to do this transition because I already had a lot of the, I guess, pre-work or pre-skills that would actually support this transition. And I had to do that in a COVID environment. And what's interesting is my internship that I did within my 2-year, right, that one summer you get to do the internship, I actually did it at SoCal Gas, and that was also in operations. So it was because most of the students at the time, along with myself, we were at a risk of losing our internship because everybody was closing down. And a lot of my friends did. So I was fortunate enough to have that internship during COVID.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to ask a question. So, Keyur, I know you talk a lot about the searching in LinkedIn for alumni within the field. I know the thing that we always encourage students when you're requesting to connect with someone is to write a personal note along with your request. Do you have any great lines or, script that you use when you're reaching out to maybe someone that you have a connection, that you have a mutual connection, but you haven't met, and then someone that maybe a connection as far as a college that you've attended, or how do you script that personal note to kind of hook them in? And
I think it's only like 2 sentences max or 3 sentences max that you can write.
300 words, or 300 letters.
Yeah. So if there was a mutual connection, right, I would always, include that somehow try to include that person's name as, hey, I was referred to you by X, Y, and Z, and I'm interested in marketing, and I would like to, just so it catches their attention, like whatever you can do to catch their attention, right? In some cases, if it's just a blind person, right, I don't know the person at all. It's more of a general, right? It's just like, hey, I'm interested in, I'm an MBA student, similar to your past experience, but I'm interested in this. Can you? And if they accept, you always do a proper message right after that, right? As another formal introduction. And hopefully that can get the conversation going. And it's always you pulling them into you rather than to them. So let's say they accept your LinkedIn and they say, yes, I'm open to a 30-minute conversation, right? Immediately get their email address, etc., right? And you set it up, right? And be very proactive in that and be a go-getter for that.
That's great advice. I love that. Following up with a more personalized message once they do accept, and then that call to action. Would love to meet. When are you available? Thank you.
Awesome.
I just have one more question. What was the best and I guess most memorable one that you still kind of gravitate to until this day? What the advice that you've gotten?
Oh wow. The best advice I've probably gotten was you have to be very resilient, but in a very smart way. And so what I mean by that is every approach you do, right? Don't just waste your time. Let me just apply, or let me just keep doing this. No, you have to, if it's not working, immediately step back. Okay, what do I need to do differently, right? Don't keep doing the same thing 20 different times, right? And don't be afraid to ask for help. I think a lot of times we sometimes, maybe get tired of doing something and we just kind of lose our efforts, right? And so you have to immediately go back, let's say, to the career center or whoever, faculty, whoever you would like to go to for support, right? And saying, hey, this happened to me and it didn't work out. what do you recommend? Is there another standard strategy? And learn from your students that are there as well, right? I think Drucker does a good job of having diversity, right? There's so many people, and because it's a smaller class environment, you can learn a lot from each other. So I think, yeah, so being resilient, but then also making sure in a tactical way, right? Don't be resilient and just keep doing the same thing over and over. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's really helpful. So does anyone have any last questions?
I have another question. If we have the time still.
We have time.
Of course. So I was really wondering, all of us are graduate students or have graduated from graduate school. And so that kind of brings with it a certain degree of like knowledge and kind of expertise in an area. Do you see at all there's any kind of a barrier for younger graduate students or graduate school graduates versus a kind of mid-career, middle-aged graduate student or professional? Is there anything that a young adult would maybe have to do differently to kind of enter an industry?
So that does exist in the corporate America, just to be very honest, because I've also had to experience it myself, right? But what sometimes you might have to get certain degrees, qualifications, just to put it on your resume, right? Because sometimes when you apply, it asks for certain things, right? But what I've learned is if you network with the right people and you have people that vouch for you, right? Upper management, etc., right? People in a higher role, that will supersede all of these barriers. But you have to convince them through your hard work, your results, right? There's hard work and then there's results delivered, right? Those are two different things. And so that's an advice, something somebody gave me at my first job, right? It's all about the end result. Like, what did you do? You could work 20 hours in one day, right? But then what's your final result of that 20 hours, right? And so every role that I've been in and every project that I've done, right, I've created a story where I have a result at the end. So when I'm talking to somebody, when I'm networking, I always say what my project was, challenges, what I did, and then what's my end result. So when you get in the habit of communicating that, you will be able to convince people to believe in you, even if you don't have an MBA, let's say, but you have a bachelor's degree, or you have, only 5 years of experience, but you have all this exposure and knowledge to be in a mid-level manager role. So it's all about your ability to sell your story well, and get people to vouch for you.
Awesome. Love that advice. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Keyur.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your stories and for those wonderful advice. They're very helpful, and I, for one, will be going back to them, especially the be resilient but be smart. I think that's really helpful. So thank you everyone for coming and for asking your questions, and thank you so much, Keyur, for answering them. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. For our future events, you can check out the Career and Professional Development website. They will all be on there. Thank you.
Thank you, folks, and feel free to reach out. I've been there, so I fully understand if you guys are reaching out. Happy to help.
Sure. Thank you.
And before you
Thank-
all go, let me just say thank you. My apologies. I had my camera off for some time, but was listening to everything. And I'm Michelle. I work in the Career Center as well. The information that you shared today was just so wonderful for students and for all of us, just to kind of get some insight into other people's lives and what they've done, but just to see how their career trajectory can have such a non-linear path, but a linear path in some ways. So just want to take a moment to say thanks. And then also bringing you back in the future. And we have some amazing events. We have 2 events next week that all of you on the screen, and Keyur, you as well, are welcome to join. It's open to all students and alumni and external stakeholders as well. So And for those of you who are going to be in person and present on the 19th, we have Duncan Scott and Ryan Patel who are going to be here, and that's going to be an in-person event. So feel free to engage, and we will drop that information in the chat as well. But thank you for your time today. I'm always, I love listening to people's stories because I've been a counselor my whole life, and it's always fun for me.
Yeah. And I enjoyed going to Career Center when I was there.
Fantastic. Yes. Yeah. Well, and I think that the team is really dedicated, and when you were working with Deborah and Cindy, it's that feeling of really wanting to be a part of their world and so on. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Have a good one.
Thank you so
Take care.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I sent you the